tower of the old mill, known locally in Yeadon as Toll Dog Mill. This is the story of the old dog mill strike in 1909. The union, Amalgamated Society of Dyers, and the workmen consistently claimed the issue was one of low wages and bad working conditions, leading to the dispute. It was general knowledge in the area that the company was a poor employer. The employers, Yeadon Dyeing Company, which was Messrs Watson and Wilson, contended it was an attempt to get the Dyers Union recognised. An employee, William Parkin, was prominent in his attempt to get the union organised and recognised. But he was dismissed without notice for allegedly being asleep at work. This sparked off the strike. The strike commenced on the morning of Friday the 19th of November in 1909. Altogether, 31 men came out on strike. The company refused to recognise the union or the workmen's right to be represented by it, and rejected union officials' requests to meet for discussions. A meeting forced by the union failed to achieve an amicable settlement. The employers failed to recruit replacement workers in the Yeadon area, and so transported in labour from Bradford and Shipley. These blackleg workers were picked up every morning from Guiseley rail station and conveyed to the old mill in wagonettes. This imported labour led to support from local populace, who saw this bad employer dispute with local lads using imported blacklegs and scabs to defeat them as not fair play. A deep resentment was shown towards the company. Workers of Yeadon showed their loyalty and support to the strikers by joining picket lines and scorning 3 local men and their families who had refused to join the strike. By the following Tuesday, one of these, John Sturdy, had to have a police escort to his home. His brother, Thomas Sturdy, was out on strike and deep bitterness developed between them. Everyone in Yeadon saw it was important that all Yeadon men should come out and show total local solidarity. The 3 non-strikers were followed home by strikers trying to persuade them by reasoning and appealing, but then insulting and threatening the consequences if they did not join the strike. Arriving wagonettes and departing after work met with mass picket at mill gates. Getting out of the mill yard was worse as people attempted to stop the wagonettes. Also, attempts to set ambushes along the road to the station, stones were thrown at the wagonettes. By the second week of strike, crowds had grown due to local interest, including women and children. Morning of Saturday 11th of December. First time blackleg workforce brought in on a Saturday, so only a few people at the mill gates, but much shouting and jeering from them. An object was thrown and hit Enoch Myers, who was returning home after a night shift at Edward Denison's mill nearby. Enoch retaliated and was apprehended by the police, but was later released. However, the crowd were excited by this incident. Word spread and the crowd grew, aggravating the situation. As the Saturday shift left at midday, a situation arose due to a passerby insisting on his right to use this public footpath. A police sergeant obstructed the man and it led to more aggravation. There also was an assault on a wagonette driver departing from the mill. From houses around the green, Locals hung black flags and effigies of blacklegs from windows. More police were brought in to protect the blacklegs, thus increasing the locals' bitterness. Eventually there was a large police contingent which were billeted at the Church Institute on Chapel Lane. The strikers made their headquarters at the Clothiers' Inn to discuss developments of the dispute. Skirmishes between police and small crowds of strike supporters continued. They gathered in back streets and ginnels to throw stones at patrolling policemen. A large crowd gathered in the evening at the mill and on the green. A wagonette arrived to collect the shift but was persuaded to turn away by the crowd. There was a large swelling crowd watched by a force of more than 50 police, including some mounted officers. Strikers smashed a gas lamp after 8 p.m. In the fracas that followed, the Deputy Chief Constable was hit by an object. The police were ordered to charge the crowd. This cleared the green, people running in all directions, chased by police through backyards, ginnels and even into houses. They were chased up the steep and along Sandy Way, the constables bearing staves. Many people were injured, some knocked unconscious. People retaliated by throwing missiles, using local knowledge to find vantage points. Police rushed on gatherings of people where they had collected, even charging innocent bystanders. Windows were broken, property damaged. The police quelled the riot, reduced the crowds, and after midnight, the streets were clear. This is the site which was Silver Terrace. And all this time, the scab, John Sturdy, had been escorted home by the police. Sympathisers of the strikers followed his wife to their home in Silver Terrace, harassing and shouting at her on the way. Also living at the terrace was another striker called Long. Stones were thrown at both Long and Sturdy's windows, smashing them. Disorder continued through the evening, and at about 11:30 p.m. a large crowd gathered, many the worse for drink. Thomas Sturdy called his brother to come out, but John Sturdy's wife hid him in the cellar. Speakers addressed the crowd and urged them to smash the house in. As a result, windows were smashed, the door was broken in, the crowd surged in, and furniture was wrecked. The drains were blocked, and taps were turned on to flood the house. A terrified Mrs. Sturdy told the strikers her husband was taken to Otley by the police, and he would not go to work on Monday. The crowd was jubilant on hearing the good news. Encouraged, the crowd made their way to a street off Cemetery Road, where Slater, the third worker refusing to strike, lived. He promised not to work, and so was left alone. Mr. Fred Watson, partner of the Yeadon Dyeing Company, lived at Olive House, one of the Westfield villas on New Road side, here on the A65. A crowd of demonstrators gathered outside the house. We think this was on Saturday, December the 11th. They shouted threats and abuse, then 2 or 3 windows were smashed. A constable was stationed to protect the house. Following the resignation of the 3 non-strikers, as a result of the intimidation by the strikers, the demonstrators moved on to the home of Fred Watson. On the way, they passed Watson's father's house on Wackhouse Lane. Some of the crowd, which now numbered thousands, threw stones through the windows of the father's house. At Olive House, windows were smashed and large stones from the garden caused interior damage. Massive damage resulted from these missiles, which included turnips. Watson's wife, child and maid got out of a back door and took refuge in a neighbour's house. A speaker, John Waite, roused the crowds to go to Guiseley to find Blacklegs there. Over 2,000 set off for Guiseley, but a large force of police stopped them, so that the crowd dispersed back to Yeadon and their homes. Some were injured by police action. On the Sunday morning, curious and inquisitive people went to see the wrecked houses. The dispute finally cooled and a conciliation board reconvened at the town hall on the evening of Wednesday the 15th of December 1909. A crowd of strikers and supporters waited noisily outside the town hall. On Thursday the 16th of December, terms of conciliation were agreed and the majority accepted the proposals. The dispute was over, but the police presence continued until the new year. Prosecutions took place against 13 men in January 1910. The final number of men jailed was 12, sentenced to hard labour, minimum of 2, maximum of 6 months.